Well, hello, everybody. This is Don Doster. I'm the CEO of G Behavior and Rival Health. I want to thank you for joining us today. I know everybody's really busy, and so we really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about our company and today's presentation, which is on the power of choice. Before we get started, if you have any questions, please type that into the question area, and we will go through those at the end of this webinar. Once again, I want to thank you for coming by during the safety conference in Savannah recently. It's kind of interesting. I've been at that conference several years, and this is the first year I can remember being nervous about a hurricane. But nonetheless, I think it was a great conference. I know it was a great conference for us, and we appreciate you coming by our booth to learn more about it. So just a little background here about me and the two companies I'm going to talk about that we merged together back in March. But I've been in the incentive safety industry for a little over 20 years. I started G Behavior back in 2003. And from 2003 really up until 2009, 100% of our focus was in the safety arena. One of our customers, actually a customer in Georgia, down in South Georgia, we had helped them with a safety program that helped them reduce their accidents 64% in about a 12-month period of time, came to me and said, "We've never seen anything work with our employees like this. Would it be possible that you could try this in health and wellness?" So we did, and it was very, very effective. So we decided to really look at the health and wellness industry, and we realized that really nobody was actually handling behavior in the same way that we were in safety on the health and wellness side. So we branched out, and there's a company in Raleigh, North Carolina called Rival Health that specializes in exercise and nutrition and has a great front-end mobile app. So we thought it would make sense to bring the two companies together. We probably talked for a couple of years, and then we finally did it back in March of this past year. There's three areas that we really focus on. Obviously, I'm going to spend more time today talking about safety. And I just mentioned a few areas: manufacturing, transportation, distribution, and construction. We've also done a lot of work as well in the healthcare area, whether it's rehabilitation centers, nursing homes, hospitals. Probably the only area that we haven't done a lot in is actually the hospitality industry, but we are talking to some fairly large restaurants at this time. If you're paying any attention, which I'm sure people are today, you can't pick up the newspaper or read any blog where they're not talking about healthcare costs here in America today. And over 80% of those costs are related to three different areas from a chronic perspective. That's either diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol, of which all are preventable except for type 1 diabetes. So a lot of companies are really interested in what can we do to get our employees more interested in paying attention to their health. And so that's why we got into this industry, and we use our same behavioral methodology in engaging people in their health, thus hopefully reducing cost to their employer. This is just a brief list of some of our customers. It's a wide range, as you can see. You know, everything from a bank and BB&T to Schneider Transportation, largest truckload carrier in North America. So we've used our methodology in numerous industries and numerous companies. I wanted to kind of start off, briefly talking a little bit about the history of incentives and why we've kind of adopted the same concepts that most people are familiar with anyway in the consumerism world. But if you look at frequent flyer programs, which most people are, it actually started with American Airlines, and today American Airlines has 66 million loyal members on that program. These programs have given rise, I think they kind of started it where a lot of other companies are looking at that methodology, credit cards, retail companies, and so forth, and trying to reward people for coming back through points-based programs and loyalty programs. There's billions and billions of dollars spent in that area every single year, but it's proven to be a methodology that actually get people to adopt and get people to continue to be loyal. So we use that same type of methodology when we went into the incentive arena when it came to safety. We didn't want to create a new type of incentive platform. We wanted to use what was already working out in the consumerism world. So our program is a points-based program by which people will be earning points for certain types of behaviors, which I'll get into in a minute, and then they can literally redeem those points for anything they want, thus bringing me to the power of choice that I'll talk more about here in a second. There's really three. If you leave this today and you take this with you, I think that you'll see tremendous results in any type of program that you're running from an incentive perspective or behavioral perspective. But we believe that there's three key components in making a program work, and that is an effective design versus a flawed design, the ability to measure and track what you're doing, and then understanding what types of incentives work. If for any reason any one of these falls short, unfortunately, it will really affect the overall results of your program. So the first thing I want to talk about is flawed program design, and I'm going to specifically talk today about safety. So everybody's probably familiar with the mandate that came out from OSHA in 2012. A lot of people really misunderstood that mandate. They thought that OSHA was against safety incentive programs, and that's not the case. What OSHA had a problem with was programs that actually were designed in such a way to encourage the non-reporting of injuries, and I'll give some very specific examples. Most programs out there today are really centered around what I call lagging indicators, and that is kind of after the problem has already happened. Incenting people not to have a lost time injury as an example, incenting people not to have an OSHA recordable injury. And a lot of those programs are not individually based. They're based on teams or departments or locations or facilities. Probably the more common ones that you'll see is you'll go in somewhere and say, hey, if we go X amount of days without a lost time injury, then we're going to put everybody's name in a hat, and we're going to do a drawing, and somebody's going to win a big prize. The reason OSHA doesn't like those types of programs is, number one, is only one person wins. So you had an entire facility of people that work safe, but they're not rewarded for that safe behavior. Only one person won. The second is that it penalizes everybody for prior safe behavior. So let's say that you went January, February, March, April, June, and you didn't have an accident, and you're getting into July, and it says, okay, if you make it through the end of July, then we've won. And then somebody has an accident, say like on July 25th, the chances are they may not report that injury, because if they do, that's going to jeopardize all of the other months in which they were safe, and it's going to jeopardize their coworkers in possibly earning a reward. So that's what it meant. That was the reason why this mandate came out, is because that's how a lot of safety incentive programs are designed, versus looking at what we call leading indicators. I like to use the example of my son when it comes to studying. If I reward him for the outcome is getting perfect grades or getting straight A's, I'm not really addressing the behavior that's going to go in to cause him to get the straight A's. So what are some of those things? Has he planned his time accordingly? Is he doing the assignments that are necessary? Does he understand the assignments? Is he turning them in? How much time is he planning for studying? So just the way that I would reward my son, I call that a leading indicator. I'm looking at how much time has he spent studying, how disciplined he is, how engaged he is in that process, which is going to lead to a great outcome and better grades. Safety is no different. So when we look at some of the behaviors that people need to do on a leading basis to lead to not having accidents, probably the one that comes to mind more than anything is wearing the proper protective equipment, PPE. One of the things that I saw early on in my when I got into this industry over 20 years ago, and I'm in the South, so going into a plant, as an example, in Valdosta, Georgia, in August, it's hot. And you'd walk around and you'd look at eye protection and notice right off the bat that people they weren't wearing the proper eye protection with the side shields. When I'd walk up to them and ask them why, they said, well, they fog up. It's so hot here. Another thing that I would see oftentimes is fall protection. Either they didn't have it on, or if they had it on, they didn't have it on right. I remember a guy standing on a flatbed truck. I think the flatbed was about 4.5 feet high, and he had on the fall protection, and the strap was tied on just like it should be, but the strap was about 12 feet long, yet the fall was only 4.5 feet. So, of course, the question was, hey, how long do you think that strap is? So that's just one example. Others obviously are things like cleanliness, housekeeping, lockout, tagout, which so many people are very, very familiar with. But zeroing in on the very, very specific behaviors that are taught through training that lead people to a safer outcome. One of the things that I've kind of decided on my own over all these years is that when I walk into a plant or I walk into any type of facility and I look at their safety program and then I go on the floor and say, okay, are people actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they wearing the proper PPE? And when I see that they're not, it's interesting when you go up and interview them and ask them questions. I notice you're not doing this. A common answer that I'll get is, well, I've been working here for 15 years. I've never had an accident. So they fall into this false sense of security that they're working safe because they haven't had an accident, when in fact the clock is ticking every single day and it's only a matter of time. And some of the more severe injuries that I've seen over the years are employees that in fact have been working with a company for a lengthy period of time, and then it finally caught up with them. One specific one that I remember was a gentleman who had been working with a company for almost 25 years, and he didn't lock out correctly. He was in a hurry, evidently had been in a hurry before. He was working on a machine that actually would carve the bark off of logs when it came through. It got to the end of his shift. He was going through the lockout, tagout process, got to the end of it, didn't wait. There was still energy in the machine, and when he reached up underneath of it, it took his hand. When he was interviewed about that post-accident interview, his first comment was, I've done this for years. When they interviewed some of his coworkers around him, they asked, have you seen him do this? And they said, yes, we've seen him do it. Which is kind of sad that nobody would actually come up to someone and say, hey, listen, if you keep doing that, the odds are pretty strong that you're going to have an accident. So in a leading indicator situation, in that situation, that's where you would reward somebody for recognizing an unsafe act or an emerging hazard and then correcting it. In any program, whether it's safety related, whether it's a sales type of program, whatever you're doing, I always recommend to use the SMART performance design. The first is, what are we measuring? And we need to be very, very specific about that. The second is it something that we can actually measure? I don't recommend when I work with a company, if you're currently not tracking something, then let's don't put that on the program. Let's figure out a very effective way to track it before we put it on. An example of that would be in transportation. A lot of trucking companies are starting to download software into their trucks that measure things like hard brake. Well, with any software system, when you first put it in, there could be complications with how it's measured. I remember this one company that we were working with that they installed a software system to measure the hard brake, and it became pretty clear that there was a problem in the way it was recording that. What we found out was for certain trucks that had certain types of clutches, it would actually ignite or trigger a hard brake event. So what happened was we rolled that program out, and it wasn't long before drivers just didn't trust the data. So what I would recommend is work through those things first to make sure it is good, it is strong data before you put it in. The other is attainable. I'm going to mention another company we started working with. I think the first year we worked with them, they had close to 65 OSHA recordable injuries. And I asked them what their goal was, and they said 0. And I said, well, in the history of the company, how many times have you hit 0? Well, the answer was no. So if we started a program where they had 65 OSHA recordable injuries and we immediately make the goal 0, everybody there is going to go, that's not attainable. We can't do that. So we believe in making sure, and these two go together, that it is something that can be attained and it's realistic. The other that I would recommend is we kind of live in a microwave society where people want to be rewarded immediately, right now. One of the problems I've seen with programs is it just takes too long. Somebody may have to work there 12 months or 2 years before they can actually get anything. Our recommendation, believe it or not, is after the first month, if people hit certain types of metrics, they'll actually be in a position to actually redeem for a reward. That way they understand it, they're engaged, they go, wow. It works a lot like, I like to use this as an example. If you have a credit card, I'm going to talk about my American Express card, and I switch to American Express, let's say off a MasterCard. The first thing American Express knows when I come on to American Express is I'm going to get his buying habits that he currently had on the MasterCard. Then they're going to start giving me points for those buying habits. And as those points build to a point that is material to me, I'll start looking for other ways. As an example, I noticed recently that I get double points on my Platinum American Express card for renting Hertz rental cars. Well, once I get to that point where I know what it means to me and I've actually redeemed a reward, I start to look for other ways in which I can earn. The same thing is in safety. If somebody finally wins and they win early, maybe they'll start paying attention to other things like housekeeping and cleanliness. Or one of the things is actually getting some certifications, whether it's an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 20 certification, that can help them be a more effective employee. Another area is when you get certifications, whether it's in CPR or first aid, might put them in a position to triage an accident that historically has ended up as an OSHA recordable injury, but they can catch it early. The last one here is timely. It's amazing when we talk about our kids, how we'll reward them as close to when, if you're looking for a certain behavior, you want to recognize it as close to when it happens as possible. It's amazing in the corporate world how companies think that, oh, we're gonna reward everybody once a year. We're gonna give them a once a year bonus. We would never dream to do that, when you think about our children and getting their behavior to change. So it's got to be something that is timely. Our belief is you need to have something where you can recognize people instantly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. So, the first flaw here on the absence of tracking, keeping track of your program's outcomes. I want to talk more about that as far as it relates to the measuring. Most people may or may not have heard of the Hawthorne effect. I was a psychology major. That was one of the things that we were taught pretty early on. But even to this day, it's extremely effective. And if you haven't heard of the Hawthorne effect, you could look it up. But it was a study done on lighting with Western Electric, I think back in the 1950s. And it's where they believed that illumination and certain types of lighting would affect productivity. And Western Electric decided to go to one of their plants, and they told all the employees that they were going to be changing the various types of lighting there to see how it would affect their productivity. In the first month that they changed the lighting, the productivity actually doubled. They tweaked it some more, it went up again, and they were about to invest a lot of money in putting different types of illumination and lighting in all of their plants, but they decided to take the lighting back to the way it was originally before they started to change it, to see what effect that would have on the behavior and the productivity of their employees. And believe it or not, it went up again. The productivity went up again. So the Hawthorne effect is all about those things that are measured improve. In other words, if employees know that their behavior is being observed and measured, the results and the outcomes of their behavior has proven to be stronger. The last area is, ineffective incentives. I want to talk about this again, coming back to the consumer world and looking at what has really, really been effective in that world is not limiting the incentives, not thinking, okay, I know what's going to motivate everybody. I think it was Chick-fil-A, I think it was about 5 years ago, did some type of wellness thing and bought Nike tennis shoes, and they didn't understand why the results of the engagement wasn't where it needed to be because they thought everybody wanted Nike tennis shoes. And what they found in is people actually had their own running shoes or they didn't like Nike. Rather than saying, okay, I don't know, all people are built differently, all people are motivated differently, I'm not necessarily sure what's going to engage you. So our approach is that not to limit that. And that's where the power of choice comes in. I love talking to parents. Hey, you have 3 different kids. Are they all motivated the same? And what I generally hear is no, which kind of comes down to 3 aspects of behavior change I briefly wanted to speak to. And that is that we believe behavior is changed in one of 3 ways or a combination thereof. The first is recognizing the desired behavior that you're looking for as close to when it happens as possible. I know with some people, and even in companies with employees, some employees, just by being recognized for what they're doing, will make changes, will adhere to whatever the policies are, just because they want the opportunity to be recognized. The next area is what we call internal motivation, which really speaks to this, and that's incentives, is that all people are motivated differently. We don't necessarily know what's going to get your attention. And I can tell you, after 20 years of being in this industry and studying what people redeem their points for, there is no methodology, no rationale to it, other than everybody redeems for what they want. The only thing that we've been able to conclude is roughly 70% of what's redeemed through our company is in the gift card area. But when you look through it, I mean, it could be anything from tools to restaurants. It's all over the place because everybody has a different interest. So to us, to get the most effective incentive program is not to try to decide up front what is it that's going to motivate people. One of the things that I see with a lot of companies, and I'm working with one right now, when we came in, is their CEO just loves his company. Why wouldn't you? And he loves seeing their brand on everybody. So he thought by offering employees logo branded things, whether it was t-shirts or shirts or jackets or bags, that would be very, very motivating. And we said, well, let's leave that in. Let's leave that in because some people may want that. But then we expanded it to our rewards model, which I'm going to describe to you in just a minute. And he was shocked at the fact that very few people actually redeemed their points for logo type of merchandise. Now, there were some that did that. You know, back to the power of choice. Some people, that's what they wanted. But the results of his program far exceeded anything that they'd ever had previously as far as a decrease in accidents. Most people are kind of familiar with this now, you know, the cash versus, non-cash rewards. Again, 20 years ago, we did what anybody would do. We went out and we asked people, well, what motivates you? And the surveys all came back, well, money, give me money. So we started doing that. People would earn points, you get a certain amount of points, and that would equate to a cash prize. We had numerous problems with it. The first problem was it would go into their paycheck, which were generally direct deposited, and then would pay bills. So there was no real correlation between I did this behavior and this was my reward. They never saw that. It also would not build to anything tangible. In a points-based program, it will build automatically because they're not going to redeem immediately to the point that it actually is something meaningful. The other problem that we had with us, and this was a big one, is every year in our programs, we will change them. They may do very, very well in a certain metric that we put in. So the next year, we may remove some points for that and put it into another challenging area. Well, when we started doing that with money, immediately it was perceived by employees as if we were impacting their income and we were messing with their compensation. So it was received very, very negatively. The last part of that was in a points-based program where people are earning points, and let's say I'm earning them, and I redeem for an iPad or I redeem for a grill. Employees will talk to each other about that. They'll talk to each other about how many points they earned and what they actually got with their points. But when it came to cash, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't say, I received this bonus. And in interviewing them and asking them why, what we learned was, well, I'm not going to tell this person I got this bonus because if I do, they're going to go complain to HR. And next thing you know, that's going to jeopardize my bonus. So I just want you to be cognizant of that. You know, our thoughts are that you need to pay people competitively. If you're trying to use a program like this to kind of disguise compensation, we don't recommend that. But once they're being paid competitively, the results that we have seen with these tangible rewards far exceed anything we ever did from a cash perspective. So on the power of choice side, we believe it needs to be tangible. It's something that I can correlate my achievements with what I earned. It encourages peer recognition. People will talk about it. It carries trophy value. It's amazing to me whenever we present to a new company, somebody always say, hey, I won this, with IBM 20 years ago. Still remember it. But if I ask them how much money they made in a certain paycheck 20 years ago, they couldn't tell me. We don't believe in programs that are entitlements. We believe it's something that the objective needs to be very, very clear. If I hit this goal, there's no questions asked. I won. It encourages loyalty. Just like the loyalty programs with hotels, that the longer an employee was with you, they're going to continue to earn these points. So it can actually be used as a retention tool. And that is, as long as you're here, you have them. But if you leave this company, you'll forfeit those points. So it does create that loyalty with them, and it gives them both an external motivation and an intrinsic motivation as well. Back to what we offer. Again, looking at the power choice, knowing that everybody's motivated differently. We're integrated with the two largest gift card companies in the world, Blackhawk and Incom. I think we offer over 400 different gift card options. We're also integrated with Best Buy and 120 other name brand manufacturers. So we're actually pulling products in. We could pull them in on a daily basis if we wanted to. And therefore, somebody actually, when they redeem for something, they're getting it at the price it is that day. If you go into Best Buy today and you look at a camera as an example, come back 6 months from now, that camera may not even be available. Or if it is available, it's probably been greatly reduced in price. So the other thing that we've gotten into is we do sporting event tickets, we do travel, our points-based programs. The points roll over year to year to year as long as the employee is here. And getting into the health and wellness side, if a company wanted people to redeem their points for a health savings account deposit because they were in a high deductible plan, we can do that as well. Real quick on kind of our concept, if you are interested, in potentially working with us, I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what our process is. The first is we have a consultative meeting with our clients. On the safety side, we actually have several questionnaires related to how the company has historically been doing on safety. And we ask them to rate things like 1 to 10. Like, is the equipment, is that a big issue? People not doing their pre-shift inspections. And we look at those areas that are rated pretty high, anywhere between 6 and 10. And we build a program around that where we will assign points to some of the more painful areas that they want to change. After that, we bring back what we call a full program. We call it a program guide back to our clients with what we call a calculator. That's a budgeting calculator where we're looking at where they have been performance-wise historically and how much impact we think this program is going to have year one and what we think the projected cost is. We find our clients really like that because we're really not jamming we're not jamming a certain budget down their throats. They actually are a part of that. They actually can create their own budget. After that, we plan how we're going to launch it. Most of our programs have their own names. What has historically really, really worked well with that client in communicating out to their employees about the program? It could be anything from a series of webcasts to actually being on site. I remember probably about 7 years ago, I was working with a company called Progressive Pipeline out of Mississippi. And we went out to the job sites early in the morning before they actually went out. And I stood in the back of a pickup truck with a megaphone and announced the program because they said that was the most effective way to communicate, which was a lot of fun. After that, we really began to measure the results of the program compared to what we were thinking it would be so that we can tweak it as we go to make sure that we are accomplishing what they want us to accomplish in the program. What I'd like to do now is, I know I flew through that, but I wanted to leave plenty of time to address any questions that may have come in. So we did get some questions, and I thought I'd put those up now. If after this you have interest in learning more, you can contact us through sales@rivalhealth.com, or you're welcome to call us at 404-949-0541. We have 2 offices, one in Raleigh, North Carolina, and one in Atlanta, Georgia. So let me pull up the first question. It looks like the first question we had is, are these rewards taxable? Great question. I want to refer you to something called the Employee Achievement Reward, which is Section 274 of the tax code. So if you were to go in and type in 274 Employee Achievement Award as it pertains to safety incentives when it relates to taxes, it will actually outline it in detail for you. But to summarize it, this was a part of the Tax Reform Act of 1986 that went into effect in 1987. And it was when OSHA was levying some pretty heavy fines, and some companies lobbied Congress and said, okay, if we're going to get people to meet this criteria, we really need a way that we can incent them on a non-taxable basis. So the law says that as long as there is a written plan as to how people will earn their rewards for safety, you can reward somebody a tangible reward up to $1,600 a year non-taxable. A lot of companies don't know that. If you think about gift cards as an example, when the gift card market first came out, you could get a $25 gift card. You could go to Walmart as an example, buy some gum and get, $22 back. If you'll notice now, you can't do that anymore. And that's because of this law. So people can't get cash back on that award. The only award that is, and I don't know why, is deemed taxable is when it comes to safety is travel. Travel is taxable, $1. But again, if you have questions about that, you can contact me, but you can Google it, and it's pretty self-explanatory. It also says that you can reward people non-taxable for length of service, years of service awards. Let me see if we got any other questions rolling in here. I see one here that says, how long does it take before you generally start seeing results? Again, that's an awesome question. All over the board. Generally in year one, we have a track record of reducing OSHA recordable injuries between 40 to 60%, which is pretty significant. How quickly we see that has a lot to do with how well the program has been launched and how engaged we have the leadership in it. The more engaged the leadership is, the better job we do communicating it, the faster the results. Got another question here about supervisors. Do we generally do programs that involve supervisors? Again, these are great questions. Absolutely. The criteria around a supervisor as to how they earn their points may be a little bit different than the people that work for them. But again, if we don't get the leaders involved, if they're not on this, if we don't even the playing field, it's tough to get them to execute the management and the supervision that we're looking for here to make the program work. One of the things that we teach is this thing called a 5-minute recognition huddle that we ask supervisors, superintendents to do in their weekly toolbox talks or their safety briefings. Well, if they're not on the program, they're not really motivated to do that. But if they are on the program and they're earning points for doing that, they'll do it. Looks like we just got another one that just came in. Have we had any problem with the non-reporting of injuries? I spoke to that a little bit earlier. But in our program, nobody loses any points for prior safe behavior. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say that I am a truck driver as an example, and I'm earning points for not having a hard brake. I'm earning points for not having a roll stability event. I'm earning points for on-time delivery. I'm earning points for my hours of service violations. Let's say that one particular month, I was caught committing an unsafe act, maybe not using 3 points of contact when I get in and out of the truck. I would only lose my points that month for that metric. I would still earn for all the others. And for all the other months that I had earned for not committing an unsafe act, we don't take anything away from them. The other thing that we do in our program right off the bat is if a company is having a problem with reporting injuries, we'll actually incent that. Report this injury within X amount of time from when it happened. That may come as a shock to some folks, but believe it or not, in some of the companies we've worked with, people will get bit. Maybe it's a spider bite or some type of beetle bite. Well, an allergic reaction, it could take a while for that to take place. So in one company specifically, some of the worst OSHA recordable injuries they had were spider bites. So in that one, we said anything that happens, we're going to actually reward you for reporting as quickly as possible. I'm not seeing any other questions here. Again, I can't thank you enough for joining us. If you want us to follow up with you and you want to learn more, again, ping us at sales@rivalhealth.com, or you're welcome to call us. But thanks again. Have a great rest of the day.